Howdy, hi, and hello, everyone. Welcome to Noah's Nest, where I, myself, Noah, will be your host. And in Noah's Nest, we all get all comfy and cozy, we relax, and we just hear myself either talk about a TTRPG, which I need to do, either do a couple character creations to pass the time, talk about a topic, or find something to do. And today, I am going to be, instead of just talking about different TTRPGs, or just game mechanics, or how to play stuff, and all that, I'm going to try and broaden the scale of things. I don't know. And instead of just TTRPGs, I might branch out into other topic ideas that could still be along the lines of fantasy or just something of the sorts. So, today, I'm going to be talking about character tropes. Familiar archetypes that either games, movies, books, storytelling has covered throughout the years and years of creative writing or storytelling. From stuff that we enjoy listening to or seeing, like different heroes and certain tropes of that, and also seeing the ones that are completely overused and we're just fucking tired of seeing them to even begin with. Whether it's a hero being too perfect or a villain to just be evil, tropes are kind of massive to storytelling. I'll break down what ones that we might love, which ones that we might hate, possibly how to work on them for you, and maybe how to avoid overusing cliches when trying to build a character in different TTRPGs. So first, I will talk about what is a trope. How do you define it? In storytelling, a trope is essentially a recurring theme or concept that shows up in different forms like video games, books, TV shows, D&D campaigns, and others of the sort. Tropes aren't bad. It kind of just helps people or the viewers understand character motivations, relationships, or even plot progression. But it might be a bit more boring or quote-unquote dangerous when it feels too predictable or when everyone knows what's going to come up and it just seems lazy. As a creator, it's important to know when to embrace a trope and when to give it pretty much a new flavor. The challenge is trying to take these familiar pieces of different tropes and trying to make them fresh and exciting. So I'll first talk about what some tropes we might love. They are the ones that are done right, maybe hit like a perfect sweet spot, and might keep bringing us back to wanting to see more. First one, I think is kind of obvious, The Chosen One. It's where a lot of people love it because it taps into like a normal classic hero role, classic hero's journey, where the chosen one is often someone who doesn't feel special or isn't special at all, supposedly, but it pushes them into a role of responsibility. It can be satisfying to watch the character grow and rise to the occasion. Think of like Harry Potter or Aragorn in Lord of the Rings. There's a sense of destiny and purpose that adds excitement to it. Next, it might not affect some of you, some more than others, but maybe a mysterious loner. We've all have played or encountered a character like this. Shadowy past, a little gruff on the outside, but deep down they're more heart of gold. This trope can work because it creates intrigue. It's fun to learn about what their hidden vulnerabilities and backstory are. Think of like Gulrick, think of like Wolverine or Joel from The Last of Us. They carry a weight of history that makes them compelling, and their quiet demeanor only adds that mysterious effect to them. Next, I kind of like this more than other people, but the funny sidekick. It's the one that's pure of gold when it's done well. This character has pretty much a comic relief. It lightens the mood and brings balance to a tense story. Samwise from Lord of the Rings or even Donkey from Shrek are easily classic examples. They might not always be in the spotlight, but their loyalty, humor, and pretty much mainly the timing makes it the most enjoyable or unforgettable to these sidekicks. And lastly, it's the reluctant hero, the character that doesn't want the job but is kind of forced to do it. It's the character that can relate. Most of these people can relate to it because we've all had those moments where we are either unprepared for what we have to deal with ahead of us. Maybe some DMs aren't even prepared for certain games and they're kind of just be like, well, we'll see what happens. You can think of like Frodo or maybe even Rick Grimes for these examples where ordinary people end up doing extraordinary things. Now, since we talked about the ones that we might love, I am going to talk about what we love to hate. Maybe even ones that we just hate. Stuff that might be overused or poorly executed to make a story feel rough. Let's look at the reluctant hero again, but with a twist. When it is used way too much, it feels like the character is just dragging their feet for the sake of drama. Sure, a bit of hesitation adds depth, but it becomes a constant whining and not making decisions. It can be extremely, extremely frustrating. We've all seen the hero who refuses the call to action for the 50th time, but by then, it's just annoying and tiring. Just go on to another person if they're still denying something. Next could be the perfect hero. The character that's invincible and always doing the right thing, never makes a mistake. At first, it might seem like really cool or impressive, but over time, it can just take a toll. It can feel like they're more of a plot device than a real character. Like Superman is a pretty good example. He's great at what he does. He's an amazing superhero. He has all these different powers, but without really any flaws, one weakness. How is that interesting? In my opinion, the best characters are the ones that struggle or who face moral dilemmas or even have room to grow. Next, I have a villain who is just evil just because. Now, there are some really good villains. I do love a really good villain, but I need something more than they're just bad because why not? A villain needs some type of motivation, a reason behind their actions. A villain who's evil because they just are is empty and hollow. Look at someone like the Joker. Yes, he is chaotic, but he's also got a lot of depth. Without motivation, the villain can just be a roadblock. And there's absolutely nothing fun about a villain with nothing. And lastly, the comic relief villain. Yes, I did say the comic relief sidekick. I like having a sidekick that's funny but also can help. But the comic relief villain, it can kind of just make them a joke than like an actual threat. They're meant to be menacing, but they end up being more ridiculous and absurd than dangerous. We've seen villains who've got caught up in like a goofy scheme, and it just takes away from the stakes of the story. And even the worst part is the kind of villain that can make a plot feel less serious, which is fine if there's a tone if you like it, but in the high stakes story, it's not good. It's not gonna be a good trope. Now, since talking about what we might love or hate, maybe talk about tropes in character creation. As a storyteller / game master, using tropes wisely can make your character feel familiar, yet unique. When you're creating a character, think about which tropes you want to pull from and how you want to put your own twists on them. For example, you can take the Chosen One. It's done before, but how can you make it your chosen one different? Maybe they're reluctant because they don't want the responsibility, or they're not quote-unquote chosen in the traditional sense, but they're forced into the role through a twist of fate. You can take the core idea and then just change the details a little bit to try and make it a bit new. Same goes with the villains. Let's take the evil villain trope. Works if you give them a backstory and motivations. Why are they the way that they are? What drives them to cause chaos? Evil villains that seem evil for the sake of it can be fleshed out with motivations and backstories to add depth and make their actions more impactful. At the end of the day, your goal as a creator is to breathe life into these archetypes so you can feel like real complex individuals, flaws, strengths, and everything else. Now, to avoid falling into the trap of overused or lazy tropes, try mixing things up. If you're creating a hero, give them flaws or vulnerabilities. Make sure they face a challenge. They can't just breeze through. If you're using a mysterious loner, maybe let them form unexpected bonds or reveal more about themselves than usual. There's always room to add depth to a trope, and that's how you can make your character stand out. Another way to freshen up a trope is by playing with expectations. You know the reluctant hero? What if they're actually excited to do the challenge, but the stakes are personal in a way that makes them question their own abilities? Or the perfect hero could be a secret weakness, something that makes them question their worth. It's all about breaking away from the norm and giving characters new layers. So, there you go. Some character tropes that we might love, some that we might hate, and possibly how to work with them in ways to bring depth and complexity to your characters. Tropes are a tool, and like any tool, you can use creativity or carelessness. The key is to embrace the familiar, but challenging yourself to make it your own. Thank you all for joining Noah's Nest. If you want to hear more episodes like this, or you want to give us a topic that you might find interesting, let us know. We have Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all these things at Creatures and Cantrips or at Creature Cantrip. Feel free to share, like, comment, everything on here, social media. Share to your friends. It really helps a lot. We do also have Buymeacoffee and Patreon if you want to support us in any way, shape, or form. You do not have to. I'm going to do this anyway. But anyway, thank you all once again. And the last thing I'll say is see you, love you, miss you. Goodbye, guys.